Hello, I'm Lucy from Bookshanks and I am back today with my next 2 book reviews from the Women's Prize longlist. Hello, welcome back to our channel where we are reading our way through the full Women's Prize longlist. As I know that loads and loads of you watching are doing as well. And it's been brilliant when you've chatted to me in the comments below about what you've thought and whether you've agreed or disagreed with me. I love it. I love hearing what you think, so please do keep it up. Today, I am here to talk to you about Ghost Wall by Sarah Moss and Number One Chinese Restaurant by Lillian Lee. 2 completely and utterly different books, but 2 pretty good ones actually, I felt. And actually, I think overall, this long list, certainly the half that I got at least, is definitely going my way. I'm really enjoying it. So I'm going to talk to you first about Ghost Wall by Sarah Moss. Look how small it is. It's a tiny little book, but my goodness, has she crammed an awful lot in there. There is so much in this book and so much to love about it too. I really liked it. It's an odd premise, but actually a really good one. It's told through the eyes of Sylvie, who is our teenage protagonist, and it's her summer holidays. But instead of living it up like really she should be doing, she has gone with her family, with her mother and father, to spend her summer doing experimental archaeology. So her father is obsessed by the Iron Age, and when sort of an eccentric professor that he befriends offers him the opportunity for his family to go with this small group of students to the middle of nowhere in northern England and spend the summer living like they are in the Iron Age, he decides to take the family to do that for the summer. And we are told sort of the story of what happens on that summer through Sylvie's eyes. And I mean, gosh, from pretty much the first page, I loved her. Her voice is so vibrant and so incredibly, believably teenage. It's set, I think, in like probably the 1980s, maybe 1990s. It wasn't quite clear, but those timeless elements of teenage eye rolling at your parents just leap off the page from the very start, and I just loved her, really liked her. But it is not very long at all before you realise that she is not an ordinary teenager, and despite even this bizarre situation that she's thrown into, it is an even less normal situation, because there is this undercurrent of just intense fear and intense violence that is running throughout, that she is living on the absolute edge. She is in utter fear of what is going to happen while she is spending her summer on this Iron Age reenactment camp. And we progress through the story and it becomes more and more apparent why she is so utterly afraid and how she is trying to hide it from the people around her, particularly the students who are, you know, that little bit older and she's kind of looking up to, and you know, trying to sort of be in their crowd and pretend that everything is all right, while just this utter fear and dread is mounting around us. And it is just, I'm just going to say dread again. It's just dread. I was turning the pages in a state of anxiety over what was going to happen, because you know it is building up to this climax, and you kind of can see where it's heading, and at the same time you're sort of, you know, hoping for all hopes that it is not heading there, and you just desperate to find out. It takes in along the way a whole load of really contemporary issues actually, around sort of xenophobia and a fear of change, and a political landscape that, although it is set in the not too distant past, is made very contemporary by the ways in which Moss teases out these issues. But actually the bigger issues that she's talking about throughout the book are about sort of the lengths of that we will go to for human cruelty, I guess, really, an obsession, and the things that we're willing to sacrifice for these obsessions and this just utter human cruelty. Even though it's set in the not too distant past, it takes in these really big contemporary issues. So we look at gender, and we look at xenophobia and a fear of change, and, you know, a desire for cultural and racial purity, and all these sort of big contemporary issues that are fed into this sort of very slightly historical narrative in a really subtle way. But also there's this overarching theme about sort of the nature of cruelty and the nature of obsession, and just how far people are willing to push their selfishness, I guess, really, in the pursuit of their own aims. And it was utterly chilling, and at times really, really tragic, and incredibly sad, and a book that I think will sit with me for a really long time, because as well as having these great themes and being brilliantly executed, it was also brilliantly written. The similes are fabulous. I think there was one sort of where someone's snores were described as like, what was it? A serrated knife through cardboard or something like that. Really, really fabulous similes. But going off on a bit of a tangent, yeah, just generally really, really packed a punch for such a teeny tiny little book. Absolutely loved it. Ghost Wall by Sarah Moss. Next up, I read #1 Chinese Restaurant by Lillian Lee, and probably alongside Remembered by Yvonne Battle-Felton, this was the book on the long list that I knew the least about. It was a totally new book to me. It was a totally new author to me. She's a debut, but it's one that, reading the blurb, definitely did jump out at me as something I would like. It is set primarily in a Chinese restaurant, or in and around a Chinese restaurant, the Beijing Duck House in Maryland in the US. And it follows the cast of characters basically who you know, live and work and have grown up with this restaurant. So I guess it's like an intergenerational family, extended family drama about all the people whose lives intersect with this Beijing Duck House. I kind of don't really know whether it has a main character, but I think probably if it does, his name is Jimmy, and he is the son of the now deceased owner of the Beijing Duck House, but he has aspirations to have his own Asian fusion restaurant that's far more upmarket, that is away from, you know, the humdrum regulars he's seen every day since his childhood, that's away from the tacky exterior and the, you know, egg fried rice, and with nothing special. He has these big aspirations. Unfortunately, he doesn't necessarily know how to realise them in an entirely effective way. So he's probably the main character. He is incredibly unlikable. He is despicable. He's pretty vile to everyone in his family, to everyone who works in his restaurant, and yet he is totally compelling. I liked him. We take in the generation above him. So his father's died, although you learn a fair bit about him. We have his villainous mother, who really doesn't like any of her children. We have the uncle, who's not really an uncle, and is definitely more than a little bit shady. We have the generation underneath. We have the niece and the niece and the brother, actually, so not the generation underneath. We also have some of the waiters at the restaurant. We have the manager and her son, who's been expelled from school and is trying to sort of half-heartedly put his life back together. So we've got this enormous cast of people whose lives intersect with this restaurant, and they are all, almost all, actually no, they are pretty much all. There are people who work at the restaurant that aren't Chinese, but I think actually everyone whose viewpoint we see in this novel is Chinese, either a direct immigrant or a later generation. So there are big themes about integrating into American culture, about the American dream, and I guess, you know, sort of the pursuit and how the hustle works, and how each of these characters is motivated not only by pursuing their own aims, but by having to balance these continual cultural challenges that they face, trying to integrate and make their own way in society, but also being you know, wanting to hold on to their culture and wanting to keep their ties to their family, and wanting to break free from their family as well. There's sort of all sorts of conflicting emotions in there, and that is the story of the book, really. It's not, I mean, there is sort of a plot, you know, things happen that act as catalysts for other things to happen, but actually this is a book about people through and through, and they're really intimate relationships, and all the things that they say to each other and all the things that they don't say to each other. And I thought it was really, really well done. There is a lot of exposition, so there's a lot of telling us what the characters are thinking and what motivates them and where they've been in the past that's brought them to these motivations and things like that. And for the first half of the book, I really, really enjoyed those, and I felt that they gave really beautiful depth to the characters and lifted them off the page. But the second half of the book, you know, I expected them maybe to die down a little bit and us get a little bit more urgency to sort of the action in the story to drive things forward, and I didn't really get that. So if you're the kind of person who is looking for something plot driven, this is not going to be the book for you. But if you are super into knowing all the in-depth intricacies of your characters' minds, then this is much more something that will be up your street. I thought of the three generations that we looked at, sort of the middle generation was the most fully realised. So Jimmy and actually his brother Johnny, who don't really get along and have all these conflicts around the restaurant and sort of the restaurant that Jimmy wants to own, they were the most fully realised to me. The generation above that, so the mother and also the dodgy uncle, I really actually liked. They were probably my favourite, but they were kind of cliched in their villainousness, I think. I really liked Uncle Pang's missing finger. That was good. But they were kind of cliched villains, but really brilliant cliched villains. But then the generation underneath, so the youngest generation, who are trying to sort of balance their Americanness with their cultural Chinese heritage, they were the least fully realised, I felt, and there were missed opportunities to show those challenges more, I think, show more how they interacted with sort of wider society. The writing to me didn't feel like it was a debut at all. It was really super fluent and fluid and evocative, particularly around the food. I mean, gosh, it'll make you hungry, this book. It will definitely make you want Chinese food. And the descriptions of the people, I've already said, were really good. But yeah, all this atmosphere and world building and beautiful descriptions, I did definitely like. I didn't necessarily feel that they were exciting descriptions, but I did feel certainly that they were super competent. You know, there was nothing that jarred or that threw you out or that just didn't, you know, didn't plain make sense. It was really solid writing, I felt. So overall, my feelings were that this was actually a really good book and a really refreshing book, because I just read all these other ones that are just incredibly violent. That's my overriding feeling about the long list so far. Enormous amount of violence. So it was kind of nice to read one that's not completely violent. That doesn't mean it's all, you know, sunshine and rainbows. It is absolutely not, but it's just not that like hardcore, utter violence. But it's a good book. It's not probably my favourite one. Might be a little bit overlong, but definitely worth a read, particularly if you're a fan of character-driven books. So, number one, Chinese Restaurant by Lillian Lee. Two pretty good books. I am really liking this long list so far. I've got 2 more to go. Scott's going to be back with his reviews. If you have read any, please do talk to us in the comments below. I'd love to know your thoughts. If you're new to our channel, please do also subscribe. It's lovely to have you, and I look forward to chatting more. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you soon. Bye.